So I'll be doing a little bit deeper dive into Power Apps and Flow than what Richard was just talking about. Just to kind of level set, I hope everybody knows this by this point today with all Power Apps and all the different keynotes and sessions. But Power Apps is all about making it incredibly easy to build mobile and web experiences from UI to data that can really change the business processes in your company. And a big part of that is you can actually now embed that development right inside the business, just like we heard with J&J Pepsi and Arriva just a few seconds ago. If we were to go drill into the major areas and really the long-term vision of Power Apps, it kind of comes down to just 6 different things. The first is going all back to that easy creation to build apps. And we say low code or no code. That combination is important because low code means that there's actually a place for developers to come in and contribute and amplify the abilities of the apps. And no code means that you can have people who can never write code being able to actually go create those applications. Another key element is that you can connect to over 230 different data sources right out of the box with Power Apps. This makes it incredibly easy to pull down information from other business applications or databases, whether it be something like SQL or DB2 or SAP. You can all leverage that right inside of Power Apps without having to write any code. And in the case where we don't have one of those connectors available out of the box, and we do ship new connectors almost every single week, you have the ability to create what's called a custom connector. And that's a way where a developer can go register an API or an endpoint, so it shows up as a building block inside Power Apps for all the non-developers or citizen developers in your company to leverage in their apps as well as in their flows. Another core element is that we have the common data service for apps. This underpins the entire platform. This is where Dynamics 365 natively stores all of its data. It's also where you can store your business data that you want to create or you want to use as part of your custom business applications, or even an application that integrates natively with all your other Office applications as well. And the common data service for apps is way more than just a database. It has a whole bunch of rich logic and capabilities inside of it. Things like plugins, which allow you to register code in response to events, as well as business rules, which is an easy visual way to create basic validation and defaulting. All that's packaged up in CDS for apps, and that's a major area of investment for us going forward. Another core element is the incredibly deep and rich integration with all the other Microsoft properties. Power Apps is the app platform for all of Microsoft. And you can see this if you go to SharePoint Online, where you can easily customize a form by using the Power Apps Studio, as well as in Teams, where you can create a channel tab that's actually just a Power App, connecting using those 230 other connectors to all the different data sources and all the different applications and services in use within your company. And that extends, of course, to Dynamics 365 and Power BI as well. And we have a great demo around Power BI later on, showing how tightly these things can come together to really provide that whole solution through the Power Platform. A core element of all of this, and whenever I talk to customers, this always comes up, which is, hey, if I'm building a Power App, how do I take control? How do I make sure that basically app creation doesn't run rampant inside of my enterprise if you're in IT or something like that? And there's all kinds of powerful governance capabilities like data loss prevention as well as analytics. And this is something that we're constantly investing in to make easier and more straightforward, where you can enable and empower your entire company to create apps and workflows, but you don't lose control. And you can make sure it happens in boundaries that you care about. And lastly, powerful professional developer extensibility. This is through things like custom controls, which are written in JavaScript, custom logic, which is written in Azure, or plugins that register with the system, and many other instances. Whether you're actually starting with no developer experience, all the way to a true, full Visual Studio developer, you're able to contribute and participate and contribute value in the Power Apps platform. And that really goes back to what we internally call no cliffs, which means you can start with the simple and go even to the most advanced all around this platform. And you can really see this in the press. So PC Mag, for the second year in a row, chose Power Apps and the associated platform capabilities as its editor's choice for a low-code application development environment. And the key thing I want to call out is they say that it's not just about, or it's everything that you want for a power user as well as a developer. And that goes back to that from no code to some code to lots of code. You can do all of it with Power Apps. So 2 years in a row, that recognition from PC Magazine and tons of other great coverage in terms of actually delivering on that promise of that full no cliffs experience for application creation. And in terms of where we're heading, what are our major roadmap items? I'm going to talk about what's coming in our October release, and things will be coming out in private preview, public preview, or general availability, and things will also be coming released later this year. I'm going to kind of step through all of these different items, but two main areas of investment for us have been enabling and lighting up enterprise-grade app creator capabilities, or app maker, as well as powerful and potent admin experiences so you can actually manage Power Apps in the hundreds or thousands of apps that may start sprouting up in your company, which is something we're seeing as an emergent phenomenon for customers today. So if you talk about enterprise-grade app experiences, two of our favorite features are these: App Checker and Solution Checker. App Checker analyzes all of your application to look for different data patterns, data queries, to go make recommendations around reliability and performance. And Solution Checker does the same thing, but for your entire solution. It goes and it looks at your plugins, your code, your workflow, your forms, all of that, and actually, again, makes recommendations. And in the case of both of these, it's based on hundreds of rules that we've learned from our largest enterprise deployments that we've taken back into the product. And this is always getting smarter and is a major area of investment for us. That way, no matter who you are, we can actually provide a style cop, FX cop style integration, so we can actually make sure we govern and manage what's being built and what's being created. Additionally, we have new end-to-end application lifecycle management. This is one of the top most asked features from our customers, and it's all about making it easy for, say, a large project of multiple developers or power users to collaborate on an application or solution and manage its release from, say, test environments to user acceptance testing to production. You can now do all of that. Everything is what's called solution aware. So you can bundle your Canvas apps, your flows, your data entities, your plugins, all of that together, and very easily move it between environments so that you can actually have a full continuous integration, continuous deployment strategy with Power Apps, just like you would if you were, say, working in Azure, if you're used to that as a developer. Another big element is the ability to bring Canvas apps into model-driven apps. So if you're a Dynamics admin or you're familiar with model-driven apps, this is really important because it brings things like the 230 connectors, as well as the on-premise data gateway, as well as the pixel-perfect design, all together in a single screen. You can generate most of your UI from the data. That's what model-driven is all about. And you can go plug in the Canvas apps so you can actually have incredibly visually appealing experiences. The next wave is all about our SharePoint enhancements. I'm sure there's lots of SharePoint admins in the crowd here. And we've dramatically improved the performance of Power Apps when it's embedded inside of SharePoint. We've added a bunch of new capabilities to the connector associated with SharePoint, added new controls and data awareness, as well as attachments, which was probably the #1 requested feature. And I know if we came back to Ignite without this, I probably would have been forced off the stage. So a whole bunch of big improvements for SharePoint. And lastly, custom controls. It's now very easy for developers to go create a UI component, which you can go register, and reuse that control in your model-driven apps to actually get a visual experience specific to what your company requires. And if you talk about the admin experiences, there's the new unified management portal, which makes it easy to go look across all the different apps and flows and connectors and connections and entities and databases used within your company. We also have powerful out-of-box admin analytics, so you can quickly see how much each of those are being used. You can go find the apps that have kind of virally grown within your company if you're in IT and take control, or even just have an idea if you're getting the return on investment that you expect by enabling Power Apps within your company. And lastly, there's rich PowerShell support. So now when you're looking at, say, 1,000 apps or in your company, you don't have to go click through the UI to do tasks and actions. You can actually write a PowerShell script to automate it, which is the tool that people know and love in terms of actually managing that type of deployment. So altogether, these really bring a significant step forward to really make Power Apps have much more potent app creator experiences, as well as the ability to go manage and administrate it from a central location. Now turning to Microsoft Flow. Flow is all about making it easy to automate those workflows and tasks, as well as to standardize the business processes on top of your apps, data, and services. And it does this via a visual creation experience, just like Power Apps, where you click together based on triggers or events. You can then take a bunch of different actions. And this set of capabilities is a really key complement to Power Apps because very frequently apps are all about the experience of end users, whereas Flow is how you can actually operate and automate in the background and in the back end. And if we go back to the core points of Microsoft Flow, just like we talked about from Power Apps, which is what informs our roadmap and vision going forward. Flow, again, just very simply, automate those business processes, take away manual activities, respond to events without having to have a human in the middle. We also have a great experience around the more advanced capabilities, whether it be things like branching, like if-else, switch statements, or loops like for each or do until, are all capabilities that you would expect from an advanced workflow engine. And even though you can start very easily visually with Flow, you can actually keep going deeper and deeper to build a very complex workflow using this piece of technology. Additionally, it supports the same set of connectors that PowerApps does, over 230 different connectors. Whether they're on-premise or in the cloud, you can go integrate with them, and it has the same custom connector framework. So if you actually register a custom connector which connects to your internal line of business systems, you can go expose that easily through both PowerApps and Microsoft Flow. And of course, just like PowerApps Flow has that strong enterprise security and also a great story for professional development customization, whether it be through logic or custom connectors, or in the future, the ability to go drop in more code snippets right inside of the workflow. So all of these come together, really drive where we're investing in the future for Flow, and aligns very closely with the other items in the Power Platform, just like we heard in the case of PowerApps. So if we go to what Flow is actually releasing in the imminent future, just like we talked about with PowerApps, there's three main areas. The first is around improving the Flow Maker tools to make it more robust and more capable. The second is deeper integration into all the different technologies and services you already use in your business. And the third is increasing the enterprise grade, the strength of the platform, so you can truly bet your business on it. If we look at the Maker tools, we can see Flow Checker. Just like we talked about with the app checker and the solution checker, there's also something that will analyze your flow and make performance and reliability and quality recommendations based on the rules that we've seen operating a hyperscale worldwide service with Microsoft Flow. And instead of having to learn the hard way in production, you can actually use the flow checker as you're developing the flow or before you go live. We also have Power Query integration. So people who are familiar with Power Query from, say, Power BI, you're able to actually create rich data experiences right inside the Flow Designer, where you can mash up data, you can collapse data, you can fold it, all without having to write any code. And this is available right integrated in the Flow Design experience. Between these two things, it's easier than ever to actually have rich data flowing through your flow, as well as the ability to go check it and make sure that you're not going to run into any issues when you go live. Additionally, if we talk about integrated experiences, there's a more robust and a more comprehensive Teams integration. The app now can be installed at the team level instead of personal level. This comes with a whole bunch of new actions and commands, as well as the ability to go author and view your flows right inside of Microsoft Teams, whether it's on the web or on the desktop client. And you can even use Flow to actually execute commands and actions using the power bar in Teams. And this capability allows you to actually make use of the 230 different connectors in PowerApps and Flow as a command inside of Teams. So if you want to go connect to something or take an action in the system, but you can't because there's not Teams integration for it, you can actually go look at using Flow or PowerApps to go extend that. A ton of great capabilities there. In the case of OneDrive for Business, Flow also now appears in that list. So just like when SharePoint doc libs, you can go in and actually trigger a flow, either based on an event, like a file appearing, or in response to a user selecting a file and executing a flow, say requesting for approval or sign-off. That now all natively works in OneDrive as well. And again, these two things reflect the increasing investment across Microsoft on the Power Platform to be what drives customization and creation for Power users and developers alike. And this is going to be a consistent theme for us going forward, in that if you want to go customize a Microsoft product, you can go look to PowerApps, Flow, or Power BI as a way to go do that. And lastly, we have the enterprise-grade platform. So just like we were talking about in PowerApps, where you can go see what the usage looks like for a Power App, you can also do that for Flow. You can see how many times it's run in an interval, how many errors there are, whether or not a user has accessed it recently, who the owner is. All that information is exposed easily to admins. And it makes it incredibly important when you think about flows that end up becoming mission critical that maybe weren't originally mission critical. And this ability is what allows Flow to allow and empower your entire employee base to go create a bunch of automations while at the same time maintaining control. And the same application lifecycle management that we talked about with PowerApps, where you can actually take all these different components of your solution together, from the data to the logic to the UI to the workflow. You can also include Microsoft flows inside that same solution. So you can actually move them together with PowerApps, and they all natively integrate from top to bottom. And again, this is really important because if we think about, say, Dynamics, which has a really hard need for application lifecycle management, you can start to move your asynchronous workflows to use Flow, because it integrates with the same ALM system, but brings with it a more modern stack, higher scalability, and over 230 different connectors. And lastly, across both Flow and PowerApps, we have announced support for the government cloud is coming later this year. So you'll be able to host in the .gov domain in a fully managed and compliant way. And this is a great complement to all the 13 different certifications we already have for PowerApps and Flow, which make it ready to be used in all kinds of mission-critical or highly regulated industries and situations. Which again, go back to the enterprise grade. You don't have to check over your shoulder when you're using these tools as your citizen developers and your citizen creators. And these things all together really reflect not only where we are from a product perspective, from where we're investing, what we care about, but also where we're going to keep investing going forward. We're going to invest in more diagnostics, more guidance tools like the checkers. We're going to keep investing in more professional power user scenarios so you can graduate from an app with 5 people working on it to 100 people working on it. That's where the platform is heading in the future. And to do a good demonstration of that, the best way is usually actually just to look at the thing. So I'm going to switch over to a phone over here. Let's see which. Great, I got the right phone. So earlier, Keith talked about the scenario he was working on with his Power App where they actually had the repair runners. These are people who go out to the buses and will repair them when they break down, but they'll repair them on the route. And that's a really important detail because you don't want to go take the bus back to the depot and take it offline for multiple hours. This is really important to have a great customer experience. And before, that was all pen and paper. That was phone calls, text messages, emails with Excel files, things like that. That's how you actually manage the process. But with PowerApps, he was able to build a powerful mobile application that managed that entire business process. So this first screen, what we're looking at here, the gray box is the currently pending repair, and the white section below, which I'm scrolling through right now, is previously completed repairs. The gray box is highlighted on the top, and you can actually see there's some tight integration there around Leah Bridge, Clapton Pond, things like that. Those are actually the next stops for the bus. And this is important because the repair runner, if the bus is still operating, they don't want to stop the bus. They actually want to go meet it at the next stop and repair it there. So they can easily pull up that information. And that's actually done by coming from Traffic for London and a bunch of other data sources to go pull that information. So say if I click through into this pending repair, we can see there's all kinds of great information here around what is the license plate of the bus I'm going to repair, what route is it running, what is the next stop, where I should be trying to meet it, things like that. And I can actually go fill out the information right in here about what's wrong. So in this case, say the defect category I want to say is body damage, and I can say there's a big dent, something like that. And I can say, hey, I'm going to repair this thing. And as part of that, I'm going to take a picture. And I'll take a picture of you guys. Great. Crowd. And then take another picture. You can take a bunch of different pictures, crowd 2. The idea being that before, with pen and paper or things like that, you actually would have to do a whole bunch of it just was impossible. There's no way to take a picture with pen and paper unless you're going to go sketch it out. But you can now do that with PowerApps. You can actually leverage those device capabilities natively. We also have a map, which as I complete the repair, records where I was. So I don't actually have to enter what stop or what location I actually did the repair. And I can also, say, use a barcode scanner. So say if I want to say, what repair item did I actually drop in there? It'll look it up based on the barcode, which I have here on a piece of paper. And it'll say, okay, I don't know what this, a fuel filter or something, if I want to go drop it in. This automatically can be taken out of inventory and things like that, which makes it very easy for me to track all this information together. And PowerApps brings together all these different data sources, something like 10 different data sources into a single mobile experience, which they can take with them in their pocket with their own devices. And this is built by a non-developer. That's what was so special about it, someone actually from the business. And if I go and say I click through repair history, I can actually go see all the repair histories associated with this particular bus as well. Because if I go check here and, hey, we fixed the brakes 5 times in the last week, maybe it is time to take it to the bus depot. Maybe we have to go in for a bigger repair. All this information kind of can click through and actually go look, okay, this is what was fixed before. Just an incredibly rich experience end to end, many different screens, and not that hard to build. And to prove it, we'll actually go build it. So I'll switch over to the computer. Okay, there we go. So what we're looking at here is PowerApps Studio. It's just like PowerPoint in that it's very easy for you to actually go author what you want your application to look like visually. We can see on the left-hand side, we have a whole bunch of different screens, just like you would see slides in PowerPoint. We can see in the center area right here, this is actually the screen that we were just looking at on the app. And that's what's incredibly powerful about PowerApps is as you build the app, you're actually looking at the app run itself with real data, with real logic evaluating. This makes it incredibly productive to go build fairly complex applications. So say if I switch over to a view I like to use more frequently, we can see I have a gallery here. This is just a collection of different things. And these are the repair items that I've actually done before. And we can see the items is a fairly complex expression up here, but it's actually not that complex. It's basically just pulling down all the pending repair requests that have a repair information already recorded, which means it's done or been completed, and showing it right here in this display. And the way I bound that data is just right inside this simple experience where I can go choose a data source. I've chosen the common data service because that's where I actually choose to store my information in the case of this Power App. I also have the ability to go change my field layout. It's pretty easy right here. You can see all the different information being pulled out and displayed right in that simple grid. So that's just a very easy snap it together type experience, and you can go tinker with different elements inside that gallery to make it a little more complex. And if I go up here, I actually have a different piece of information, which is the gallery of pending requests. That's what's in this gray box. And this has a similar expression up here, which is basically saying, hey, I want to take from the repair requests table in the common data service. I'm going to do a filter based on the fact that there's been no repair action taken. I want to sort by the ones that are most recently done. That's what sort by does, and take the first 5. So a very, very easy way to snap these things together on these screens. But that's not super interesting necessarily, right? Just to go review the different information. What I may want to go do is actually take an action. So if I say click through into one of these repair items, so when I'm actually on site looking at an item that I'm repairing, I want to have that same type of rich information automatically bound. So we can see I have an edit form, which is actually allowing me to edit that same repair request entity right inside the context of the application without having to go leave it or anything like that. And again, it's pulling the schema and fields automatically from the common data service so I can very easily edit that particular record or go create new records if I need to. And there's a whole bunch of other great device capabilities down here, like taking a photo, taking the barcode, things like that. And the one thing I do want to call out while I'm on the screen is the data sources. So PowerApps, like we were talking about, one of the key things is having tons of connectors. We have over 230 connectors today. We're going to keep building connectors until we have basically the whole world covered. But this Power App alone uses 4 different entities in the common data service. It uses a Transport for London API, it uses Azure Blob Storage, uses Bing Maps, speech to text, all kinds of different capabilities. Just all integrated, again, without having to write any code. If you just think about what you could build this entire app in just a day, it would take you a day just to figure out authentication to those many services. So even if you come from a developer background, there's a lot of agility and speed available for you. And if you come from a non-developer background, it would just be impossible otherwise. So if I go over here and say I want to go add on one last screen, remember the repair history screen, we can actually go drop that on right here. So say I just drop on a gallery, which is just, again, that collection, a list of items. So that'll drop that on right there. And if I drag this down, I can then bind to the data source. So this is just a simple list. It's a bunch of placeholder text right now. If I want to, I can go to add data source. It's going to pull up all the different data sources that are inside of this particular app. And maybe I want to create a new connection. If I look, these are all the connectors, just tons and tons and tons of them, all available off the shelf. I don't want to use that actually. I'm going to use a data source I've already configured, which is that repair history item. So I'll come here and say repair requests. This will go pull down that information. Not very beautiful at first, right? But that's not a big problem. I can then say from a layout, I don't want image title and subtitle. I actually want title, subtitle, and body. That's just 3 text fields and still not really pretty, but it's very easy for me to say drop in here, choose the title. I can say, hey, what do I want to do? I want the defect category label. See, that's brakes, engine, air system, things like that. Automatically binds, just refreshes in real time. Don't have to compile, don't have to publish anything like that. I then go to the subtitle. I like created on, so I'll keep that. I can then go to the body. And for body, maybe I want the defect details, because that probably makes more sense, right? Like brake safety light coming on, right? And that could be an example of what that looks like. And if I click through in here, maybe I don't want the chevron. So just very easily, click, 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 bringing this thing together. And if you think about it, maybe I want to actually, hey, I want the rows a little bit bigger. So I'll drag this bigger. You can see it gets bigger, so on. And then maybe I want to drop on like an image. So I'll drop on an image right here. I got no image right now that's defined, but I'll choose something simple. So maybe I'll do, what image do I want? I'll do something like if the defect category label is equal to brakes, I want to use this Arriva one that I have breakdown. Otherwise, I want to use sample image. And if you think about this, just very easy Excel-like expression language. I'm able to do basic logic right in the Power App. And again, the logic just evaluates immediately. I can quickly see this image comes up. So in the cases where the value is brakes, up there for the label, I can actually see that we have this triangle icon. And where it's not, I have a sample image. And I'm just, for time's sake, I won't actually go create all the different images. But you can see how easy it starts to get really to create this app. So I can come up here, say, and also maybe increase the size of the particular label. I have all kinds of different capabilities that I can do very, very easily right inside the Power Apps context. And if you fast forward, kind of like the Easy Bake Oven, what comes out in the end, maybe it looks something like this, a little bit nicer if you just have a few more minutes. But the one thing I do want to call out before I leave the Power Apps Studio is the app checker. We talked about this. This is now available, and it's getting better every day with additional logic. That's right up here, this little stethoscope there to go help you in your app. And if you see, the app checker is run, and it's identified one issue with my formula and 83 issues with accessibility. So say screen readers to work on my app. So I got a lot of work to do. If I click on the formula, we can see, hey, we have a delegation warning. And what this is basically telling me is this particular filter I've written, this doesn't happen on the server. It actually happens on the client. And we have a whole great article explaining delegation if you go look it up after seeing this error. And this can tell you that you need to go change your filter or potentially change how you do your data layout. Because if you don't, when you actually end up with a lot of data in the back end, your app is going to start running dreadfully slow. So these types of things we can go catch during authoring time automatically by intelligently providing guidance. So that's the App Studio. The one other thing I want to quickly show is Flow. So if we go back to the app, there's a little button here which is take 24-hour offline. We see right here. And you do that when something's horribly broken with the bus. You just can't fix it on the side of the road. You got to bring it back to the depot. And that's something that should be used only as a last resort. And to make sure that's the case, you can actually use Microsoft Flow. And what the Flow does is it looks and says when there's an update inside the repair requests entity, which is where we're storing that information, and we're updating the request 24-hour sheet field. So we're scoping this flow to only run when that field changes, which is a brand new preview capability. I then actually want to run this particular workflow. You can see, hey, if it hasn't changed, so it's true, that's great. And I actually want to start an approval process. And the approval process is going to generate an email and track who actually has approved this request, all with the same context that came out of the common data service. And that's done by something called dynamic content. So you see these little tokens that are inside the designer. The email for this approval will actually include this information. Hey, there's a request for 24-hour repair for this route at this station. And that actually comes all the way up from the trigger. So really tight integration, just like Power Apps, you can flow all kinds of information. And in this case, there's another condition. So we have conditions and conditions and conditions. You kind of keep going all the way you want. And we say, hey, if the approval is approved, then I want to send an email letting the manager know with the same context using the same dynamic content. And I also want to send a push notification to the tech who actually requested it. And this way, you can just have that very quick feedback loop through the mobile experience. And if you reject it, you actually want to go back to Common Data Service and mark it as no, saying this is not a good reason. And so they look back on their phone, and it will say 24-hour request, and it will actually show no. And that's what we're doing right here by requesting a 24-hour sheet saying no. So this whole end-to-end flow can be automated without having to have humans being involved via email or text or anything else like that. Very, very standardized. And for the person doing the approval, they'll actually see a tile like this in addition to an email and various other sources, which they can click on and say, hey, yes, the bus needs repairs. They can just do this very easy experience. And this is actually captured in the Common Data Service and will show up later on in terms of the history of the approval and things like that. So with that, we've kind of gotten a whirlwind tour of a real mobile app built by a real customer that actually goes and pulls information from the Common Data Service and from a bunch of different connectors. And this makes it incredibly powerful for people like Keith to go build rich experiences and really transform their business and deliver tons of great value without having to write huge amounts of code. And that kind of goes back to that overarching guide and principles around Power Apps and Flow of being about no code to low code, simple to more complex. You can do it all with that same platform with professional developer extensibility.